The other woman. A trope quite popular in romance stories that would have a small wrench in the pursuit of happy ever after for the main couple, be a woman who is interested in the love interest and whose presence would have the audience worried or irritated that they are getting in the way of the love that they are desperately waiting to see reciprocated. And this in turn colors the reception of this character by those who are either reading or watching the story. The other woman's sole purpose is to exist as a brief stopgap, a tiny blimp to be overcome on the journey to true love. And I have always been the person who found myself often feeling sorry for said other woman because it's not their fault really that they aren't the main character in the story and are thus doomed to never receive the love that they want, no matter how much they fight or scheme for it. And yet, some of them are treated better than others in stories. In the case of Bridgerton, the question stands, who had it worse? Edwina Sharma or Marina Thompson? Because I think it's important that we recognize the similarities in both women's stories and how parts of the fandom have been quite harsh in their reactions to them. Some would consider the treatment deserved for one young lady or the other, whilst I simply want to examine their roles, how their stories played out, and how little grace we extend to the other woman in the narrative. Our introduction to Marina Thompson in Bridgerton Season 1 as her stepping into the Featherington household, fostered onto them by her father by virtue of the debts he's owed by Lord Featherington, who then passes her off to his wife to have her introduction to London society happen together with the other three Featherington girls. And due to her beauty and poise, she leaves the rest of them in dust and is the cynosure of all eyes outside of the ones that are, of course, focused on Daphne Bridgerton, who is the diamond of the season. Marina is charming and lovely and seems to have everything going for her until Mrs. Varley informs Portia Featherington about Marina's missing cycle, and we get the reveal that she is pregnant. And matter of fact, it is the scandal of her dalliance with the young Mr. Crane that saw to Marina's father having her shipped to London so she can secure herself a proper match. Marina is at first insistent that she would wait for her love, unwilling to cave to the pressure from Portia, and would most likely have stuck to her guns to disastrous effects because it was only events happening as they did that meant that Daphne got the information she needed to then help Marina make the inquiries that brought her the truth and the resolution of her story somewhat. Without that, Marina would have been showing and still waiting for George. But as I was saying, Marina is at first insistent on waiting for her love and refuses to give up on them until Mrs. Varley, on the instructions of Portia Featherington, forges George's signature on a letter renouncing them and their relationship, and this in turn forces Marina into the space where she then has to turn her eyes to securing herself a match to protect her secret and secure the parentage of her unborn child. And this is when our eyes turn to Colin Bridgerton, the kind and sweet and helpful Bridgerton brother, who she believes would at least make a decent father and husband and is a way better prospect than anyone else that she could consider. The problem, however, is that Penelope Featherington is in love with Colin, and the audience is very much aware of this. Matter of fact, book readers know that Pen and Colin's story is contained within the pages of the fourth book, and yet here comes this young woman whose actions and desperation to cling to Colin Bridgerton threatens that future. By virtue of that, the narrative cannot let her succeed because to do so rids us of the happy ever after that is promised to Colin as a couple. Then we have Edwina Sharma, younger sister to Kate, whose family returned to England from India for the London season with the sole purpose of securing Edwina a match and her being oblivious to the dire financial straits of their family's finances. Edwina, who is being raised every which way to be the jewel, the season's incomparable by her elder sister Kate, is taken underneath the wings of the Queen and catches the eye of Anthony Bridgerton, who is ready to secure himself a match in the most practical way possible, sans any sort of emotional entanglement and feelings because of his own personal issues and trauma. Edwina, meanwhile, is pleased to be courted by a viscount and finds herself falling for the idea of falling in love with a viscount, which honestly, can we blame her? Look at Anthony. Think of the wealth and the power and the prestige that comes with a name as old and respected as the Bridgertons. And to make matters even better, look at Anthony Bridgerton, who looks like that. Of course, she's not going to complain. But unknowns to her, Kate, her big sister, is falling for Anthony and vice versa. And as the narrative has Anthony as the main couple, it simply meant that the clock was already set and it wasn't in Edwina's favor, as we all counted down to the scene when the truth would be revealed and Edwina would be aware of what is going on behind her back so she can walk away, thus opening up the opportunity needed for Kate to get with Anthony. Like Marina, her role was meant to be a stopgap before we moved on to the main couple proper. They do have quite the similarity in the roles that they were meant to play. And before you say that Marina and Edwina are in no way similar, after all, one was revealed to be heavily pregnant and schemed as a result of that, whilst the other was a sheltered young woman, a luxury that Marina was never given or allowed, as she explains to a shocked Penelope, who was curious about how she came to be with child. Both young women, however, do have strong similarities with how their stories play out and the function they serve within their seasons. And like I mentioned in this video, or as you might have deduced from the title, I have spent the last couple of weeks running the circumstances and situation of Marina and Edwina in the back of my mind, trying to figure out who had it worse. And when I raise that question, I mean both with regards the active choices made by the writers and also how we, the audience, received these characters and their choices/story. I mean, it could be your knee-jerk reaction to immediately think Marina had it worse. After all, she is the one who is saddled with a pregnancy out of wedlock that would have utterly ruined her, as it started to when Lady Whistledown, aka Penelope, broke the news about her pregnancy to the rest of the ton. Until, of course, Sir Philip Crane showed up to take responsibility for his dead younger brother, who was the father of Marina's child. Well, children, since we got the reveal in season 2 that she had twins, or you could think Edwina had it worse. I mean, whilst Marina was all scheming and pleased with herself as she grabbed her bags and was about to successfully elope with Colin until the Whistledown issue came out, Edwina, meanwhile, was so close. And she got there without any artifice whatsoever. She legit was at the altar, just about to say her vows before the entirety of their society, including the Queen, when her sister's nerves brought her own fiancé to his knees, and the two of them proceeded to start high fucking before man and God and her in her own wedding dress. I mean, sure, Marina wanted to marry Colin, but she wasn't as emotionally invested in him like Edwina was with Anthony. Matter of fact, what hurt for her is the fact that her secret was so callously revealed before everyone and all her plans went up in smoke. And the revelation of her secret, the moment of it breaking at least, she had the good fortune to still be within the walls of the Featherington home and the scant protection that it offered her in that moment. Edwina's entire failed marriage debacle happened before the entirety of the ton. As she cast her eyes across the crowd, we as the audience could see when some members of the ton started to put the pieces together. Both women were humiliated, but one's humiliation happened in real time before a very judgmental crowd. Of course, there's still the fact that a failed wedding cannot compare to an unplanned pregnancy. So we could say that in that regard as well, maybe Marina had it worse. But then, if we look at the event of the betrayal that both women suffered, we can say that Edwina had it worse for sure. Like, sure, Marina considered Penelope a friend, albeit a more recent one, but a friend nonetheless, to whom she had entrusted her secrets. But Kate is Edwina's big sister. Like, yes, both women were betrayed by the women that they trusted, women who ended up getting together with the men that they both wanted to be with, Colin for Marina and Anthony for Edwina. But I still believe that the betrayal hurts so much more when it is a sister who raised you and who you've trusted implicitly to the point that you kept throwing her together with your fiancé in the bid that they would eventually come to like each other, whilst you are unaware that that is the problem, the fact that they do like each other. It's sad. It's sad when you consider it. And yes, I know having her entire business blasted on Lady Whistledown hurts, and God, to be the fly on the wall when post season 3 Marina learns of Penelope's other identity. But I still believe that in this regard, a betrayal from a sister is so much worse than that of a friend of a couple of weeks. And then there's the fact that ultimately Edwina got to choose. She got to make the actual decision of the man she would marry and spend the rest of her life with. She got to make a choice of love. Marina didn't get accorded that chance. She couldn't, by virtue of her pregnancy. And so the next best thing that she could do was to accept Philip Crane's proposal to her and marry the brother of the man she loves. And gods, the narrative did not treat her well in that regards at all, especially because she came so close to having gotten away with her plans. It definitely hurt her way more in that regard. And I will lay the pain of that at the feet of the writers of the show, because I think it is important for us to actually remember and have it sink in that neither Marina's courtship with Colin that almost led to her eloping with him, which therefore threatened the future of Pauline, or Edwina's extended courtship by Anthony that led to them making it all the way to the altar happened in the books. This clear positioning of these two young women as the other women who were to be hit with the vitriol and impatience of an audience to characters whose aim basically served as a stumbling block to true love is purely a show insertion. They chose that purposefully and deliberately for the sake of drama, which ultimately makes my question one that is very important, because gods, the amount of people online who lost the grace they had for Marina when she stopped being the fragile girl who was about to be forced to marry a septuagenarian who kept observing her teeth and body like cattle, like chattel, to a scheming young woman plotting for the best of her situation who set her eyes on Colin Bridgerton. The change in tone after people watch that episode and realize who she was gunning for. My God. And then there are people till date who basically believe that Edwina, not the writers, is responsible for Anthony not having gotten enough time and focus on their own relationship, since the build up to the wedding plot of her and Anthony stretched all the way to episode 6. Both characters have had to deal with quite some anger from fans. So yes, based off of the characters, what they went through, how their story arc was written, how they were received by the audience, which of these two women do you ultimately think Bridgerton did worse by? Marina or Edwina? My answer is Marina, but that is because I also know the events of what happened prior to Sir Philip with love, and my heart just, it breaks for her. All that trauma on one young woman is just so unfair. But of course, that is just my opinion on that. You are perfectly allowed to agree or disagree with me. Please share your thoughts in the comment. Like this video if you've watched this far and haven't done so yet. Share this if you want. Support me on Patreon if you can. If you can't, however, do consider checking out my other channels. One is my gaming channel and the other holds my ASMR content. I have both of them linked in the description bar. If that sounds like something you might want to possibly check out. Whichever the case may be, however, I will see you tomorrow with a new video. Until then, do remember, obsessing over the things you love, perfectly valid coping mechanism.